I think that's one great fantasy of Hindu communalists, which is that Muslim women are okay, but Hindu women are always targeted by evil Muslims. Publicity for the film, which, as you said, mentioned thousands of women, has now scaled it down to, I think, 3 women. So I think it's quite clear the film is there to play on insecurities. If we start saying ban this film, ban this book, how are we any different from fascists, from people who want to ban things? There will be films that will be much more politically controversial, films that will target Muslims and other communities. What do liberals do then? Do we still take the same line? Do we say it's fine? Or do we say, no, this one has gone too far?
Alright guys, today we are speaking with noted journalist, veteran journalist, author and columnist Vir Sanghvi. We're looking to understand the boundaries of freedom of expression and looking at the movie The Kerala Story, which is, I think, hit the 100 crore club as well, and the controversy around it. The teaser said 32,000 women from Kerala had joined the Islamic State. Well, after there was a furore, there was an uproar, it was corrected, and it turns out that there were only 3 women out of those 32, which is the truth. How do you distinguish a true story from fiction? Where does freedom of expression actually lie?
Thanks so much, Vir, for doing this. And, you know, your article that you written, I think, in the print was very interesting. It's a very different take. And I wanted to take it forward from that, you know, looking at the freedom of expression, where how do you actually define freedom of expression in today's times? It's all, you know, a little bit sketchy. So actually, you know, by the time, and I'm going to kick this off with the fact that, you know, there were changes made to the teaser of The Kerala Story before I go into, you know, a generic conversation. From 32,000 women, it's down to three women, and, you know, but the damage is already done, isn't it? Because, you know, in a system where the government is supporting it, in a system where, you know, you have the WhatsApp universities, the IT cells, people are going to believe what they want to believe eventually.
Fantasy of Hindu communalists, which is that Muslim women are okay, but Hindu women are always targeted by evil Muslims. If you go on social media, you'll find people who should know better saying that Muslim men are much better in bed. I've recently saw a post saying that they're trained in madrasas how to satisfy women, and therefore our women are in danger. I mean, it seems to be the greatest expression of Hindu insecurity that I've seen. But I have never seen any logic to this. And The Kerala Story, in a sense, so I haven't seen the film, I must be upfront about this, plays on that fear, the sense that ISIS and co are taking women away, using them as sex slaves or whatever. Now, I don't want to discuss the facts of the story. All we do know is that the publicity for the film, which, as you said, mentioned thousands of women, has now scaled it down to, I think, 3 women. So I think it's quite clear the film is there to play on insecurities and to make a political point. And as though if there was any doubt about that, during the Karnataka campaign, the Prime Minister used the Kerala Story as an example of why you should vote for the BJP. Because if you don't, all these evil jihadis will come and do all these terrible things to women. So I don't think the intent of the Kerala Story is in doubt. I think it's a film that plays on Hindu fears. And it's a film that makes a political point.
But, you know, isn't it going to send out a message in terms of, you know, as you also mentioned about pop culture, in terms of the cinema? I mean, we've looked at the Kashmir Files, we're looking at this, that, you know, the stars aren't great, the investment isn't great, the profits are huge. And it's going to encourage more and more people to come out and, you know, just say whatever they want to say in the garb of fact, you know, or the way they want to say a story.
Well, I think that's going to be one of our problems. My attitude to the Kerala Story, and I think the attitude of most prominent liberals, apart from little liberals like myself, is that if we start saying ban this film, ban this book, how are we any different from fascists, from people who want to ban things? As liberals, it's our duty to let all things be expressed. If people don't, our famous thing is, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Don't deny others the right to see it. So that's why I think even on Kashmir Files, on the Kerala story, Shabana Azmi's tweeted, Shashi Tharoor has tweeted, many prominent liberals have tweeted saying we disapprove completely of this film, but no ban should be imposed. People should see it. Now, I'm one of those people. I don't believe the film should be banned. But here, as you said, here's the problem. Because the film appears to have done well, the film has been praised by top political leaders, we will now go further. The next film, the first few films of the genre, you could argue for them. There will be films that will be much more politically controversial, films that will target Muslims and other communities. What do liberals do then? Do we still take the same line? Do we say it's fine, let these be shown, we're liberals? Or do we say, no, this one has gone too far? If you say it's gone too far, then you have to have a line. I don't think we have a line. I don't think we know where that line is. I don't think we know how far is far enough. And so we are really on a very slippery slope.
How then do we demarcate where freedom of expression stands? How do we even define a propaganda film?
It's difficult because it's like varies from person to person. One man's freedom fighters, one man's terrorist, one man's erotic stories, another man's pornography. All of these things are essentially subjective judgments. The rule followed by many liberal societies, say England for instance, is that there is free speech and we would never dream of curtailing or restricting free speech, but there is one area where you have to be concerned. If you take our traditional restrictions on free speech, we've always said there should be freedom of speech, but it should not include defamation, it should not include national security. And we've also said that because there's freedom of speech, it doesn't mean you have the right to cry fire in a crowded theater. You don't have the right to create panic. It's that exception, I think, that many people have seized on in the West. For instance, in the UK, there's the Race Relations Act. And the idea is if there's anything, artistic expression or not, that is creating differences between races, that is provoking violence between races, that is capitalizing on prejudice, then yes, there is an argument for banning it or censoring it very heavily. We've used variations of these arguments in India without ever sort of framing a law. For instance, we banned the satanic verses. Well, technically, we banned the import of the satanic verses, but effectively banned it because there were protests from Muslim organizations. We've agreed to take films like Padmavati, which later became Padmavat, to the censors and make cuts because people were protesting. So in India, we have a system where if anybody protests, we immediately ban things. And yet we don't have a system that liberals accept is fair or rational. And part of the problem is that liberals themselves haven't decided what is fair, what is rational, where do we draw the line. Perhaps the line should be drawn on films that cause communal hatred, films that target a community. One of the things after I tweeted in fact saying that I did not support any ban on the Kerala story, is I got many messages from young Muslims, from people who said, do you realize what impact this has on us? When we go to office, we are called jihadis. I had letters from mothers saying, when our children go to school, they are called terrorists. Are you going to other a community using popular media to do it? And in the guise of so-called entertainment, are you going to make children cry and leave school because the other children are shouting at them? Are you going to make Muslims feel that they have no stake in India? And if you do that, can India survive? And these are very serious questions that we don't debate enough. And at the root of my reservations about how we will tackle freedom of speech is this: India survives on plurality. It survives on diversity. Attack the diversity and use what the most potent form of media, Hindi cinema, to do that, then India is in trouble.
Glad you brought that up because, I was going to say this as well, that the fact is, okay, you can turn around and say it's not, it's fact and love jihad and all of that, but you're actually continuously targeting a community. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we can say that it's freedom of expression, but we're not looking at what it means to that community.
Yeah, I'm saying turn this around. Take the example of Indians in the UK. If many films kept coming out, if television shows kept coming out, portraying Indians as dirty thieves who had come into the UK only to steal things from white people, we would protest, right? I mean, we protest about a BBC documentary. We protest about everything at all. Even we would say that the targeting of Indians or brown people in the UK is wrong. And the UK government, I think, accepts that. And that would never happen in the UK because there is the Race Relations Act. And there are restrictions on things that spread racial hatred. It's similar in France and in many other European countries. So has the time come now for us to look at that structure, to adopt some laws, some system that prevents this kind of stuff from going out? You can't trust the censor board because the censor board generally, without casting any reflections on the current board, but generally the censor board is always the handmaiden of the government because the government appoints the members. So you have to have some kind of legal process, some way of saying this is unfair, this is hatred, this is prejudice, this is bigoted. And we need to sit down perhaps and work out a system of laws and a system of working out how it should be done as is done in the West. And once we have that, let's stick to it. If somebody calls for a ban on the satanic verses, it should be subject to the same guards and the same safeguards and the same tests that say the Kerala story or anything should be. But at the moment we just make it up, we keep banning anything we want to. The moment somebody protests, we ban it. If they protest and it feeds the interests of the government, then they don't ban it. And we as liberals just sit back and say, hey, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. But it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, I'm just going to take one of the comments that I just saw, Vir. Yeah. A person who just wrote saying it's not about love jihad, it is about taking our women. And that's what I mean, you know, that narrative that takes off when it wants to, you know, it just needs to go from one WhatsApp to another.
Yeah, obviously that is an insecurity, right? Obviously, I mean, I have always had this view and I get pilloried for saying it, but that people who are trolls, people who come on social media to abuse other people, to abuse other communities, are in some way mentally damaged. Many of them, I think, are repressed or sexually inadequate. So this kind of issue is just perfect for them. It plays up their own securities.
Also, somewhere, you know, we've always been a bit of an intolerant society, haven't we? I mean, over time, it's not something that's very recent. It's just that I think social media has just allowed everybody to come out with all fastest fingers first. But, you know, we've always had that streak going way back, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you go back to the first bans in India, they were done by the Jawaharlal Nehru government. For instance, there was a famous writer of Indian origin called Aubrey Menon, who did a sort of takeoff on the Ramayana, and it was called Rama Retold. And it was banned not by any Shakha or any RSS type, it was banned by Jawaharlal Nehru's government because they believed India had just come out of a very bloody partition, there had been terrible riots, Hindu-Muslim relations were very delicate, you didn't want to inflame any kind of communal sentiment, which I think was sensible probably at the time. But do you then do that for the next 60 years? Do you do that for the next 70 years? And if you are going to do it, then do it with a system, do it with a set of rules. Don't do it depending on what a particular minister feels.
As a veteran journalist, this question is, you know, catered to you and the media. How would you tell people who are looking to get into this profession how they should differentiate between what is fake and what is not?
I don't even think it's fake or not, because that battle I think we've lost a long time ago, whether it's mainstream media, whether it's Fox News in the US or many of our own channels. There is now no distinction between fake news and real news. News is what a television anchor says it is. But I think we need to make a distinction between news that just entertains or say serves a political. I'll give you an example. If say an Indian television channel says that Rahul Gandhi is very spoiled and takes a private plane to the Maldives or to the French Riviera every week, that's wrong. It's a lie. But it's different from if they do a story saying that Muslims have come and raped so many women, that Muslims are coming and attacking our women, and that leads to a riot. Anything that spreads hatred, anything that's communal in nature, anything that's bigoted should be stopped.
It just also depends on people. I mean, we've also become one-dimensional, haven't we? We're going to listen to what we want to listen to. Not, you know, we don't want to be uncomfortable and hear the other side of the story anymore.
I think that's one of the ironies of our times, in that we are now, there's an information explosion. We are exposed to more points of view now than at any time in human history. It isn't just the newspapers, it isn't just the television channels, it isn't just the websites, it's social media, it's Facebook, it's Twitter. There's just so much information coming our way. And we're faced with this information overload. Instead of being more open-minded, we become closed-minded. As you say, we believe what we want to believe, we hear what we want to hear. And when people lie to us, as long as we like the lies, we're fine.
And there's no accountability. I mean, look at the way the media covered Aryan Khan and the revelations that have come out. But there's been no noise after that. Once it's all.
Yeah, I actually thought we focusing on Shah Rukh Khan and his son because that's the biggest story. But what about Riya Chakraborty? What about her and her brother? That whole family was destroyed. This man, Sameer Wankhede, it now seems clear, really had no grounds to proceed against her, let alone put her in jail. What about the way they acted as though any film star who'd ever smoked a joint was a dangerous criminal? What about the lies they told? The Narcotics Bureau said that, Narcotics Control Bureau said that to the court, that Aryan Khan was part of an international drug mafia. All of these were clearly lies. Forget for a moment that Wankhede is now accused of extorting money, but we know now that these were lies. And these were repeated not just in court by people who should know better, but by the media. They were treated as the truth. It's Aryan Khan and Shah Rukh who'll hire good lawyers, who'll eventually get him out. Who did Riya Chakraborty have? How was she to defend herself against the lies told about her?
What does it really say about where we are? Would you get into media? If you had to get into media today, would you have chosen this profession?
Yeah, no. In fact, my son asked me if he should get into media when he came of age. And I said, no, not because of this. I just think the sense of the media as a serious career is over now. It's more or less impossible. When you joined NDTV, for instance, the world was a very different place. At the moment, you can't make much money from media. So therefore, media is usually the lapdog of the rich and the powerful in India. Very few people are doing this on a sound commercial basis. And those that are and don't please the powers that be tread a very sort of dangerous path.
Yeah, what does it really take now to tread that path?
It varies, I think, but we will never know because, to quote the BJP, to quote Mr. Advani, who said to the media in 1977, after Mrs. Gandhi had been defeated after the emergency, he said his objection to the media was when they were asked to bend, they crawled. I think it's the one respect in which Advani was ahead of his time. It's true now.
I'm going to divert a little bit and take a little bit of a light mode to this conversation. Is that something, where you take a break and you write those blogs away from the kind of other serious issues that you write on?
No, they're
that equally a passion?
No, they're very serious issues. I pay as much attention to a column about food as I do to a political column. It's all journalism, and I bring the same effort and the same energy to everything I do. It's not like the politics is the real stuff, and then I unwind or relax, I write about a restaurant or whatever. It's all journalism, it's all what I do.
How did you get into it, Vir? Writing food columns?
Oh, completely by accident. I was editor of the Hindustan Times. We were revamping our Sunday supplement. I said, this must be 2002, over 20 years ago. I said to them that they should do a food column because I said in this century, food is going to be very big. And they said, you want to write about food every week? And I said, yes. Get a columnist who's opinionated, who says things. And they seemed very unconvinced, but they went around looking. And then when we did the first issue, I said, what happened to the food column? And they said, oh, we couldn't find anyone. So I said, fine, I'll do it. So I wrote it under a pseudonym, I think for a year and a half, because I just wanted to prove that it worked. And of course, it worked much more than anybody thought. And then eventually Penguin published a collection of the root food columns, and my cover was blown. And I owned up, we got rid of the pseudonym, and I started using my own name. But I was vindicated in that food did become very big, but I got a career by accident.
So what's the fun part of writing it, and what's the the hard part of writing it?
The hard part of writing it is that you have to find something that interests everyone. if you write for the HT, as I do, you're dealing with what? Millions of people. It's the largest circulated newspaper in North India, probably number 2 in India, is number 2 in Bombay as well. So when there's such a large readership, how do you find things that will interest? If you write about vada pav or if you write about golgappas, there's a certain number of people who are interested. But if you write about the best restaurant in the world, will everyone be interested? Do you care that everyone is interested? Do you just focus on a small audience? It's a difficult balance, and I fight with it. I fight with myself trying to achieve that balance every week.
I don't know how you come up with, a food column every week and another a political column every week. I struggle to find just one to write every week.
There's a third column as well. It's called The Taste. It's on the HT site. Root Food is in the print edition of the HT and in Brunch Online. The Taste is in HT Online, and the print column is, of course, in print.
So how long does it take for you to write a food column? You also travel quite a bit.
The writing doesn't take long. It's the thinking that's difficult. No? By the time you write, you should have thought of what you want to say, how different it is. Apart from that, you should have thought of a subject, which is more and more difficult. Like my print column this week, I had to obviously write something based on the Karnataka elections. And yet, I mean, we've got Karnataka coming out of our ears. Do I really want to do just another analysis of the Karnataka results? So I had to find an angle. So I've written it, and you'll read it on Thursday.
Super. And is there another book on the way?
I wish there was, but I really have nothing to say. I wrote this book we spoke about, the memoir, only because it was the lockdown and I was stuck at home and there was nothing else to do, and I had to write just to sort of keep myself from going mad. And the only subject I could write about during a lockdown was myself, which is how the book was written.
Which I totally enjoyed, But,
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to where we started to kind of end this, in a roundabout way. Where we are now. Are you hopeful that people will, come together eventually, or is this going to get worse before it gets better? The kind of polarization, the kind of...
It'll get worse before it gets better. And I hope it gets better. But it'll certainly get worse.
And when you kind of receive, those articles that you write, I'm sure you also get trolled. How do you respond to it?
A lot of trolling where people get very upset and say these are threats, etc., is not from real people. A lot of it, the vast majority of it, is organized. There are people sitting in troll farms who target you. There are these glove puppets, keyboard warriors who are paid to do things. There are freelancers outside who a political party will say, this is who we are targeting, this is the tweet, try and do your own variation of it, and they'll get paid 2 rupees. So if you're going to sit and worry about 2 rupee walas and keyboard warriors who sit in control rooms, then you might as well give up living. So no, that kind of trolling doesn't worry me at all. In some ways, I'm happy that I'm helping people make 2 rupees. But usually, when I realize I have a 2 rupee warrior on my tail,
does motivate you to keep writing more and more, the kind of, if you get trolled, you say, I'll come back and write a little bit more.
No. In the beginning, I used to respond, and then my wife told me that the worst thing you can do is engage. So now I don't even engage. I just block them.
Yeah, see how calm is she?
She's much calmer and much smarter than I am.
No, I was telling, I have not met her in a while, so I'm due to have a conversation with her as well. But Vir, always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to speak to you. I'm so glad you invited me.
No, my pleasure entirely, and thank you.